Patriarchy is defined as a social system in which positions of dominance and privilege are held by men. In today's society, it might not seem obvious that the patriarchy still holds significant influence in our everyday lives. Well, it does. But let's take it back a bit and look at the beginnings of this social hierarchy. The shift to a patriarchal society began when humans stopped being nomadic and started settling down in agricultural communities. Because men were the ones who were given the more physically taxing jobs like hunting during the nomadic times, in agricultural communities, they stuck to these physically difficult jobs like plowing and hunting once again, which is where they gained their dominant role. This led to women being given domestic, quiet jobs, which were seen as less valuable and easier than the jobs men had to do. Because of this, women's roles were seen as less important and were restricted in their opportunities and autonomy, while men were the people of power, the heads of households, and all that good stuff. Well, how unlucky for us, because who would have thought back then that this little development would continue to affect society thousands and thousands of years into the future? Once women were seen as insignificant and were forced to be compliant, escaping this characterization of women was impossible and has continued to affect countless lives and events in our history. While I can go on and on about all the things the patriarchy has affected, today I will be focusing on something that has become increasingly relevant these past years: patriarchy's presence in social media. Social media has boomed these past couple decades, and the influence it has on Gen Z, my generation, is profound. We are pretty much the first generation to have access to people, content, and media from all over the world 24/7. We have had access to Instagram, YouTube, etc. for most, if not all, of our lives. For most of Gen Z, our day revolves around the use of these social media apps. It's basically how we learn things going on in the world. It's become a new form of news for us. It's easier now than ever for us to get information, which is a great resource, don't get me wrong, but it also has some pretty serious consequences. What you learn and take from these apps, the news you get, all depend on what you interact with. Additionally, the information you read and watch might not always be true. Bias holds a heavy weight in media as well. Bias changes not only how you process information, but also how you retain it. So with all that in mind, you can see how much influence social media has on Gen Z, and it's detrimental if that influence is projecting negativity. Speaking of negativity, there has been a significant increase in the popularity of certain influencers who have gained popularity with their misogyny. You might have heard the names Andrew Tate and Joe Rogan before. They are very famous for preaching the alpha male lifestyle and spreading misogyny across their platforms. Men such as this are where you see the patriarchy shine the brightest. They push the idea of male dominance and share their misogynistic, stereotypical, patriarchal, and dangerous thoughts about women. Many influencers like this even have sexual assault charges and arrests against them, but they still manage to keep their platforms alive. Unfortunately, their popularity is not from people criticizing their content. There are real people, men, teenage boys, and even younger boys who seriously follow and listen to the advice they give and the ideologies they promote. These influencers are influencing young men and boys on how to be toxic and dangerous towards women. Personally, we shouldn't be the biggest fans of that. We do not need more of them. This alpha male, hypermasculine ideology is not only harmful to women, but also to the men who believe in it as well. Hypermasculinity shames weakness, physically and emotionally. They preach diets and workout routines that are supposed to make guys super buff, and they also preach that emotions are weak and shameful. This idea of masculinity, or how to be a guy, has serious consequences on young men's mental health. They are shown beauty standards that can lead to body insecurity and eating disorders, and they are told to repress their emotions, which can lead to several mental health challenges. Historically, these pressures have been predominantly placed on women, but with the influence of social media getting bigger, it has spread to men as well. And with these pressures and practices in place in a young man's malleable mind, it is not easy to change. According to a study done by the Brookings Institution, a lot of young men are now shown to have more patriarchal values and be more patriarchy-oriented, even when compared to some older men. Young men are shown to have progressed the slowest towards anti-patriarchal values compared to young women who have become significantly more anti-patriarchal. These new developments have resulted in a gender gap in Gen Z. This gender gap and difference of values has caused tensions between young men and women. There has been a recent trend on social media where women were posed with the question, would you rather be alone in the woods with a man or a bear? Women everywhere online have said to opt for the bear, and men on social media are not happy about this. They think it's ridiculous how women would choose the bear over them. But is it really that ridiculous when we've seen a rise in boys and men posting and commenting disgusting things about women and encouraging violence towards them? Women everywhere have experienced this type of harassment online. Influencer Drew Afwalo has gained popularity by posting these types of comments and defending herself and the women who have received them. She has thousands of videos on comments like these, which shows just how common they are. I am by no means internet famous, but I myself have received a comment or two calling me a bop, which is a new slang for someone who's easy or something. Was my post relevant to this term? I don't think so. I just posted about where I wanted to move to in the future. This shows just how common these comments are. And no matter what content you are engaging in, you will always find these types of comments. This rise in harassment, hypermasculinity, and patriarchal values are why we as Gen Z need to use the power social media gives us to create the change we want to see in the world. Many of us are already doing this by raising awareness on issues that are going around along the globe. Awareness is the key to knowledge, awareness is the key to support, and awareness is the key to community. Gen Z is the future to our society, and with the power and relevance social media gives us, we need to use it to create the change we want to see in the world. Thank you.